were not. You were in. Actually, you were in our preseason.
I was in Portland as well.
I want to cover playoff hockey in Vancouver. I want the fans to enjoy and experience playoff hockey in Vancouver. I want the Canucks to win a Stanley Cup for this city. And looking at Raptors Twitter right now, a fade for Cade. I feel like a lot of them would love to see him there. I mean, I'm not advocating for that, but I mean, I know that's big on Raptors Twitter minds these days.
There's a lot of Twitter warriors out there.
LA gave one out to Jared Goff, and they've already moved on.
Correct.
They didn't think that could work for them.
It's all good. It's in it. It's in the box.
It's in the box.
Perfect.
For the Unnamed Sports Show, here's your host, Joshua Griffith.
Hello, and welcome to the Unnamed Sports Show here on the Sports Talk Line Network, where we talk sports 24/7, 365. I am, of course, your host, Joshua Griffith, as you heard in that intro that is going to be updated here. So stay tuned for that. Today on the show, we are going to chat all things Vancouver Whitecaps after their 2-1 victory over Minnesota United. Vaulted them up into 5th in the playoffs in the Western Conference. It was a huge match, 2-1. They got a big goal from OG, that's own goal. And then Brian White, of course, slotted his 12th of the season. To get you caught up, I'm going to be chatting with the play-by-play man for TSN that does the Vancouver Whitecaps games, and of course, the host of Sekeres And Price, Blake Price. But before we get to that, we have to take care of some housekeeping. Like the video down at the bottom. Let me know your thoughts on the Vancouver Whitecaps. What do you think of their season as they're surging to maybe even get a home playoff spot? Might be tough to catch Portland, but you never know. Subscribe to the Sports Talkline channel if you don't already, and make sure to follow me on Twitter at Joshua Griffith. Without further ado, let's get right into some Vancouver Whitecaps chat with my guest, Blake Price. All right, so I'm joined now on the Unnamed Sports Show by the play-by-play man for the Vancouver Whitecaps on TSN and co-host of the Sekeres And Price Show weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m. on the GoGoat Sports Network, the one who has to deal with Matt on a daily basis. Blake Price, thanks so much for joining me today. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing great, especially after a really exciting 2-1 victory for the Vancouver Whitecaps last night against Minnesota.
Yeah, I mean, that wasn't the most thrilling victory we have seen in terms of a 90-minute, TV show, but it had its own way of thrilling Whitecaps fans with the first half goal at the death, and then a spectacular goal by Brian White in the second half that they rode to victory and ultimately needed, of course, with the late marker for the opposition. So it was, they're finding different ways to win. And we've seen some really boring results that have still given them points. We've seen spectacular games that have given them full 3. They've really just found different ways to do it every time out.
Yeah, I mean, you look back to the match against Portland, thrilling come from behind victory. They're sawing off 1-1 results in San Jose.
That's right.
It's big for this team. What do you think the biggest reason is? Do you think it has something to do with Vanni Sartini? Excuse me.
Well, some credit does need to go all the way back to Mark DeSantos. Now, he may not have been the ultimate key that unlocked this team, but there was a foundation built there. And I think, Vanni's using the same personnel that Mark DeSantos helped to collect with Axel Schuster, of course. So I think you give Mark DeSantos at least the second assist, if not the first assist on all this. But Vanni has found the next level to bring this team to. And, the Stand By Me stuff, again, goes back to Mark DeSantos. And, this camaraderie. I think it was a good dressing room. Of course, we can't get right in there as media, even as a play-by-play crew. We're not right next, adjacent to the team per se. We're at a training and we see how they interact there a little bit. But I still think there was a good feeling in the room. It may not have been quite where it's at right now. This Ted Lasso-like believe sort of mentality that they have. But Sartini has certainly elevated it again to that next level where they just believe. And there was that fabulous behind the scenes look at Sartini in that Portland game saying, we're going to win this game. I mean, just great stuff. And clearly the team is lapping it up and they're allowing it to affect their game. And they're going out there on the pitch and never believing that they're out of any contest.
You know, and you mentioned that, and I got the sense too, there was never any disarray in the locker room under Mark DeSantos from the players, but it just seems like Vanni Sartini has just brought this little extra that he's drawing the strength of his players that maybe Mark couldn't get.
Yeah, and the thing that Mark, we'll never know the parallel universe where there is no COVID and they're never in Sandy, Utah, and they're at BC Place the whole time. Like maybe Mark DeSantos, was sort of sewered by that whole experience that they were just never able to be themselves down there in Sandy, Utah. We'll just never know the true answer to that. But, again, he's the man in charge now, Vanni Sartini, and he has to get the credit for getting this team to where they are, and the belief and the execution of a game plan, which is different. We should say that his game plan is different than Mark DeSantos. I don't know that Mark DeSantos would have ever gone with this 3-4-1-2 setup that Vanni's now using. They do coach differently. So we have to give Vanni the credit there too. It's not just about feel good and you guys can do this. He's not merely about that. His tactics are, I think, I don't know if quite different is fair, but they're different than Mark DeSantos. So that part is working too. It's the X's and O's as well as that psychology.
And I just find, his tactics are a little bit different. I spoke with him after the match against Minnesota, and in the first half, Adrian Heath looked like he had the Whitecaps under control. Everything they were trying to do, there was a Minnesota Loon player right there to stop them, one step ahead. And then some changes in the second half, some tactical stuff, and the team just flourished. And he was more than willing to chat about all of that after the match.
Even at halftime too. We had a short chat with him at halftime, and he admitted there was going to have to be a little bit of a tactical adjustment. There was a bit of a stalemate. I mean, they're not too dissimilar. Formations are different, but they both are pressing teams, and it seemed like they were both it was that Spider-Man meme where they were just kind of, stuck. I mean, the first 15 minutes we thought were quite fun. There was enough going on in the first 15 minutes. I thought it was quite entertaining. And then right at that 15-minute mark, again, they just sort of stared at each other for the next 35 minutes, and it didn't really show us much. So it was a better second half in terms of entertainment and in terms of flow. And they found a way to unlock a little bit of offensive incursion into the Minnesota zone, and and then you just get execution at the right moment. I mean, that Brian White goal, he has got a 1 foot wide spot to put it in there.
Yeah,
and he puts it in there. Like that's a. First of all, it's a bit of a cutback shot. He's got the momentum taking him away from goal. I think he was probably parallel with the post at the time. It wasn't cutting back too much, but again, his window is so small there where Miller's not going to get it, and it's not going to be wide or hit the post. And the way Brian White's going right now, it was perfect. So they're getting execution of the chances that they're getting. I mean, they're not overwhelming teams. Let's be clear on that. They're not peppering teams. But when your execution is as flawless as it is right now from Gauld in the setup spot and from Brian White in the goal scoring, you're going to have some success, and that's what's happening right now.
I'm joined by Blake Price here on the Unnamed Sports Show. You guys had Brian White on your show last week on Thursday ahead of the weekend games, and he just seems to be on fire this year. That's 12 goals now for him. Why do you think his fit in the team has been so good?
I mean, a lot of this is unexplained. I mean,
okay, I was hoping you had an answer for me. Yeah, because I'm in the same boat.
I mean, he's got pedigree. I mean, he just didn't come out of nowhere. This is not like a struggling guy that all of a sudden he had I think a 9-goal season with Red Bulls at one point, not in the concentration, of course, that he's had this season. It's funny. We got told the story when they were down in Sandy, Utah. They acquired Brian White, and they are training down in Sandy, Utah, and we're getting the reports because that's all we had at the time of how is Brian White doing down in training. And what we are being told is, he is scoring absolutely everything right now. He's pinging them exactly where he wants to. And we were encouraged by what we heard, and we thought, okay, well, maybe the Caps have made a good acquisition. And then he scores in his first match, and again, you're sort of thinking, okay, did they just uncover somebody that was stuck behind depth in the Red Bulls organization? But then nothing. And then the drought, and you really didn't even see flashes. Like, in all due respect to Brian White, in between goal 1 and 2, I don't know that we even saw many flashes that led us to believe he's just snake bitten right now. Like, it just seemed like there wasn't much there. And it's just hard to reconcile the player that we see now with that drought. He's clinical. Like, he's absolutely clinical right now. We talked about the goal that he scored against Minnesota. A lot of it is inexplicable. And you do have to give credit to Vanni Sartini and Ryan Gauld. Let's give credit to those two key figures. But I don't want to say that it's all Ryan Gauld either, or all Vanni Sartini, because he's also setting players up. He's added a bunch of assists along the way here too. You think about that header down to Ryan Gauld, I believe, a couple of games ago. I mean, that was he did exactly what he wanted to there, off the left side of his head, put it onto the feet of Gauld, and it was in the back of the net. I mean, it's just everything is going, right? You say it in hockey, and I suppose it holds true in soccer too, that, when you go on the net just becomes that much bigger. That just seems to be the case here for Brian White. He's making it look kind of easy, which is unbelievable for him.
And I think it was either you or your broadcast partner, Paul Dolan, on the Whitecaps Minnesota game that it said clinical. That goal is clinical.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't use that term much. It's not one that should be thrown around, but yeah, there was like a 6 inches. That's it. The ball would fit in there, and he found it.
Yeah, it's fun to watch when players are in this sort of zone, and Gauld is in it too. I mean, it's an assist per match for Ryan Gauld, and that can't be underestimated as to what that brings to the team as well. And it's allowed other guys like Dahome and Caicedo to sort of just find their game periodically, and that's going to be enough to provide that secondary scoring. And of course, there's that Lucas Cavallini trickle down effect as well. But it's fun to see players in their element. And for a while, it was Max Crepeau, of course, who had the opposite. The ball was 3 feet wide. It was just, he wasn't going to let anything past him. It was just, right down to PK stopping. So when players are in that zone, that's why we're sports fans, right? Is to see these immensely talented athletes just, make our jaws drop. And right now, Brian White is doing that.
So, you mentioned Lucas Cavallini, and I was supposed to chat with you last week. We got our wires crossed a little bit. Things got busy, but last week after the Portland match, the camera panned to him, and it was a picture of him sitting on the bench. He had a little bit frustrated body language, didn't look happy. This week, completely different. Came on. He had a big smile on his face coming in off the bench in the final couple minutes. What do you think of Cavallini's future with the Whitecaps?
I think it's muddled. And to be honest, if I'm a betting man, this is of no inside information. If I'm a betting man right now, I would be surprised if Lucas Cavallini is a Whitecap next year. But that's purely based on speculation and opinion. Again, no inside knowledge there. His narrative has been a back and forth one from the organization, messaging from the organization, because 1 week, Vanni, and who's very transparent. So I'm not suggesting this is anything untoward from Vanni, but it was curious. 1 week, we were told how great he was training, and that's why I think that led into a start he had, or he came on for a good half hour at the very least.
He started the one. I think he started against Portland, and then Brian White came on.
Yeah, so it might have been leading up to that Vanni had said that he had been training well all week and he deserved it, and we didn't bat an eyelash at that. And we actually made note on the broadcast too that he had sort of got this kudos from the coach on how he was training. And then the next week, Vanni sort of hinted that, he needed to up that training, needed to up his fitness even. So the messaging has been sort of a little bit back and forth in regards to that. And he's of course battled injuries. So something might have been lost in translation for Vanni, that it's not about fitness, but maybe just feeling good about the comeback from the injury. It might have been that more that he's referring to, but and even the attitude from the player has been sort of back and forth as well, because there have been hints of him, appearing. Again, who knows if he was actually sulking? It had the appearance of sort of some sulking, or
maybe he bit his tongue. Who knows, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then other times where you're right, he seems to have a great team first sort of attitude as well. So it's really hard to know and hard to make what is actually happening there. But Lucas is a great guy. I mean, he's not he doesn't appear to be a cancer on this team. I'm not suggesting that for any iota here, but I still don't know how that salary can get justified when they do the year-end report card. Whenever this season ends for the Whitecaps, it's going to be hard for Axel Schuster to sit down with Vanni or whoever that coach is for next season to say, should we continue to pay this money out for this player, given what we have now with Brian White, given how that money could be allocated to, more help for Ryan Gauld in the midfield, wherever you want to allocate that money. I think you could reallocate. So I think it's going to be a tough decision for the Whitecaps. Maybe they're going to just be super loyal to the player and say, hey, he was embattled with injury this season. We want that depth, because ultimately, hey, Lucas Cavallini went down with injury. That put White in the spotlight that allowed this hot streak to happen. It's nice to have depth. Right now, it's expensive depth. Again, you have to weigh that paycheck and whether or not that's the expense you want to have depth on your team.
You got to think Brian White's getting a raise 2 years. So, but with Cavallini, right? They brought him in, they rolled out a literal tank for him. And then, it's kind of the same thing that Mark DeSantos had to deal with. We've had these COVID issues, the Orlando bubble, opts out of playing some of the matches. Then they're in Portland, then they're in Real Salt Lake. It just feels like he almost should be given another chance too. But yeah, at that price.
And I wouldn't be surprised that happened, honestly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of extenuating circumstances to the last 18 months for the Whitecaps. So, I could see them going down that road, but as I said, I would say it's probably 51-49 in my mind, that they move on from the player, but it's not an easy decision.
Yeah, absolutely. So two matches left. We got a big one down in LA, and then an even bigger one on decision day against the Seattle Sounders. How big are these two matches going to be for the Whitecaps?
Well, the scary thing for Whitecaps fans is LAFC's on a roll, and LAFC has been underachieving all season long. They've been a total paper tiger. I don't know, we've, like Galaxy, we've just kind of tended to, hey, like a lot of teams in the Western Conference, Timbers, Sounders, you see the colors and you just think, okay, it's a good team, regardless of what their record says. And yet LAFC just didn't seem very hard to play against. And yet now with Arango, they're on a roll, and they steamroll Seattle the other night, which was very odd. This is going to be tough on the road, and I think you'd probably sign up for a point. And considering it's the penultimate game of the season, that seems like an odd thing to say, because 3 points would probably guarantee them the playoffs. It would still mean decision day means something, because it would mean something in terms of the seeding. A home playoff date would be on the table if they get 3 points. So the dangling carrot would be there. I think we know how Vanni has been coaching. He does not sit back and hope for the tie until the 75th minute. If they're tied in the 75th minute, he'll finally say, okay, let's get the point out of this. With exception, of course, he counter when available, but you can tell internally he's sort of okay with the draw on the road at the 75th, in the 75th minute. But I think they're going to chase down 3 points, because if they can get a home playoff date, and you can bet the ownership will be saying, yeah, if you can get the home playoff date, we'd appreciate that. That's on the table. But I think, and of course, there's also no guarantee a home win in, versus Seattle. So you got to take the points that you get. There are two really tough outs for them. 6 points are available. What are you satisfied with if you're a Whitecaps fan? What's going to be enough mathematically? Is 3 enough? Probably. I'm going to say 3 is probably enough, but I would say if you're only going to get the three that's more important is probably the 3 against LAFC rather than 3 versus Seattle, because that immediately pushes down LAFC, who are a rival contender for a playoff spot. So it is complicated math. MLS must be loving this because of all the chess pieces moving around. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I know. Just looking at the standings, Seattle's going to have something to play for. Everyone's going to be having
surprisingly,
in the last 2 or 3 matches. So, Blake, I just wanted to chat a little bit before I let you go about your new, but I guess not so new endeavor with Go Goat Sports now. 7 months. Congrats on 1 million views. I chatted with Rob Reese, and I just kind of wanted to get an idea like why they jumped so quickly on board this. And he just stressed, he's like, these guys are delivering amazing sports content to the Vancouver audience, and we want that to continue. We want to partner with local people. And I was just wondering if I could get your thoughts on that.
Well, that was our impetus to keep doing it. Is when February 9th happened, people reached out en masse, listeners and sponsors alike, and said, we're with you. And we wanted to take advantage of that outpouring of support and see if we could make something out of that. And so far, so good. I mean, there's a lot of work ahead, and it's an unstable world. It's an unstable media world as well. So can't exactly put our feet up at any point here in the proceedings, but we're going to do our best to keep this momentum going. And, hey, MLS knows about expansion, or North American soccer knows about expanding before you should. So we're heeding that advice, and we'll expand and reach for the stars when appropriate. But we're pretty happy where we're at right now. Our studios are fabulous, and we're quite proud of that. So it's an exciting time.
Well, you love to see it, and you can listen weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m. on all your digital platforms. You can check them out on Twitter, obviously, at sekeresandprice.com. There's a live listen link. That's the one I use every day. Super easy. Great stuff. Blake, thank you so much for taking the time today. Have a great day, and look forward to chatting in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much.
Cheers. All right, so welcome back. That was so great to be joined by Blake Price of Sekeres And Price and play-by-play for the Vancouver Whitecaps TV for TSN. It's going to be a great last two matches for the Vancouver Whitecaps. My apologies. I think I said LA Galaxy. Blake corrected me. He just said LAFC. That's who they play on Tuesday. And LAFC is sitting in ninth spot right now with 44 points. Minnesota's in eighth with 45. Salt Lake, 45 and seventh. LA Galaxy have 46. Vancouver Whitecaps are sitting in fifth with 47. Portland has 49. And then the top of the table is a little bit congested as well. So what we were talking about, how Seattle will probably field a really strong lineup on decision day, is they're still looking for that number one spot over Kansas City. And as we know, with the MLS changes to the playoff format, only one team gets the bye. So it's really important for Seattle to kind of push in the remainder of the season to get that top spot. So it's going to be lots of action for the Whitecaps. Shouldn't be much for rest issues because they play on the Tuesday and the Sunday. Lots of time to train, make sure everyone is healthy and ready to go for the matches. So I hope that everyone enjoyed that conversation with Blake Price to get you caught up with the Vancouver Whitecaps, what's going on with them, and of course a little bit into their newest endeavor with Go Goat Sports for the Sekeres And Price Show. Also on Go Goat Sports is Rink Wide. It is giving you pre and post game Canucks shows. So make sure to check them out. That's with Andrew Wadden and Jeff Patterson if you haven't checked it out already. That pretty much wraps it up for today. So if you haven't already, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe at the bottom, leave me a comment. Would love that. Let me know what you think of the Vancouver Whitecaps. And thanks for tuning in. This has been the Unnamed Sports Show here on the Sports Talkline Network, where we talk sports 24/7, 365. I'm your host, Joshua Griffith. And remember, sports fans, love sports, all sports.